Hello and welcome to the North South podcast. This is episode 473. We lose count. I've got no idea what one it is. I'm
Yeah, I don't
Dave,
know
and this is Andrew. And
Hello.
we're going to talk. It's been a while, but we're going to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about strength and conditioning. One, because we want to have a bit of a catch up. We've spent at least a good sort of 40 minutes talking, and we should have pressed record. But our day jobs is that we are both strength and conditioning coaches, and we both happen to work with a lot of grapplers. So we thought we'd have a bit of a chat about that and what you can do around strength and conditioning, some of the stuff that we see that we think is fucking stupid, and some of the stuff that we think is quite good. So we were just talking about, or I was boasting about everyday maxes. I can't take any fucking... I didn't come up with these. I read it in Mladen Jovanović's strength training manual, and he got it from some Eastern European.
I was going to say...
I can't remember which. It's the Bulgarians, probably.
I was going to say, how do you give... obviously, it's nice to give credit to where you've read it, but how do you...
yeah, I don't know who where it came from.
Who can you credit for near maximal effort strength work? Like, I'm not sure there is a source of that. I think if you went back to the original source, we're probably talking fucking prehistoric era blokes lifting fucking rocks up. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's near maximal strength training has been around since the dawn of time. No matter whose idea it was, whether Louis Simmons with his fucking max effort method, which he stole from the fucking Eastern Bloc, and I say whether it's Mladen
I think it is Eastern Bloc, because from what I've had it explained to me it was an experiment in seeing how lower volume approach you could take and still make progress, or like Go on.
The Bulgarians were notorious, weren't they, in their training systems for every day was just basically max out your lift. So it'd be like one day, it'd be like, it might have been all of them, but on a slight tangent, there's a documentary on YouTube about Carlos Nasir. Do you know who Carlos Nasir is?
No.
Okay, so Carlos Nasir is probably the best Olympic weightlifter on the planet at the minute. It's about 88 kilos. It's called Weightlifting House, I think, the YouTube channel. It's fucking incredible. Like, such a good documentary. It's about 90 minutes, I think. It's worth watching. Even if for us who are interested in weight training and the various different weight training sports, it's about weightlifting. He's the current Olympic medalist. I think he's the first Bulgarian in so many years to win a European title, a world title, and an Olympic title in the same season. So just a fucking freak, mate. He's like 23, 24, like 88 kilos, but looks like he should weigh about 120. Just like this fucking monster of a bloke. Just like watching him train, again, for non-strength training people, probably not that interested, but like watching him just like, when we talk about like training load, and you're watching this bloke just on a Tuesday, just like snatch pull like fucking 250 kilos off the ground, just on a normal, like it just puts training load in, the load, his weekly training load, he must put thousands of kilos through himself every day. Frightening, like terrifying. Such an impressive, but anyway, really good, interesting watch. But to go back to the original point, the original Bulgarian method, I think, please forgive me, anyone who's listening knows better.
Before we get it all wrong and look stupid.
Before we get it all wrong, I'm pretty sure their method is based on, obviously this is an extreme extent of what we're going to talk about, but every day they would max. So it'd be like, on Monday it'd be like a squat max, a clean and jerk max, and then it'd be like a high pull max or whatever. Yeah. Tuesday it'd be like front squat max, clean deadlift max, snatch max, and basically you just max out every week. Now, obviously through the years of training that's filtered down, people have realised that, well, the Bulgarian system was notorious for its drug use, but it was almost also very much a culture of survival of the fittest. Like it was.
Was that also the one where the guy? I'm probably mixing up my Eastern European Olympic weightlifting teams, but there was one team where he had a large group of aggressive young men who were all on gear because the state had sanctioned their doping, and he needed to make sure that they didn't get themselves into trouble before the Olympics. So part of the way he designed their training was to make sure they were too tired to go out drinking. And I mean,
it sounds very likely, but essentially it was that system. That system was based around like trying to effectively break them, because the ones that didn't break would end up being the best athletes of all time. Now, obviously, people through the years. The Chinese system, yeah. They
How
just
did they
use
get
mass.
so good at sevens?
Yeah. They just use mass child kidnap at 4 years old, don't they? And just put
The
them into
broken bodies of all the kids that didn't survive the training.
Yeah. But yeah, so effectively, like through the years, people have realised that max effort to some degree, training is obviously very, very useful at building strength, but doing it in that capacity for that much volume probably isn't the best long-term investment. So through the years,
when you're not already borderline an Olympic athlete,
when you're already not a freak of nature,
you're not getting some supplementary medicine.
So like it's through the years, it's filtered down to the point where, like I said, like Dave mentioned, whether it's Mladen or whether it's come from like, again, we were talking about this before, like more bodybuilding style where they use very high intensity, low volume approaches. People like Jordan Peters, who, if anyone follows him, does some ridiculous shit in the gym. People have realised that you can use maximal effort work. It's just the context and what we use that is important, and that's what we've come to like an everyday max thing. Whether it's like you said, you're from like Will and Mladen, or I don't actually know where I was first introduced it to. It probably was like Will and probably speaking to you. To be fair, like I can't actually remember where my first insight into it was, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah.
So it's I've posted about it before. It's really simple. You just you hit a heavy-ish single. So one that you don't need to psych yourself up for. No one's slapping you on the back and punching you in the face. You don't need people watching you. You don't need to take pre-workout. Just go in, lift pretty heavy, done. And then you take 80% of whatever the weight that you lifted for that day was, and you do 3 sets of 3 with that.
Yeah. So I just extension off what you've mentioned. So like, I think it's worth, obviously we might talk about this in the future, but like I use it a lot within various programs as well. But yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that singles, you can use triples, you can use fives. Like I would typically run them in sort of a linear fashion where it'll be like, we'll start with fives. Typically it'll go fives and the back offs at 8s. So it'll be like a set of medium 5, back offs at 8.
Oh,
and it's
usually,
it's usually, oh dear, well, whatever, fucking a rep here and
do you know who put me onto that? It was, shout out to another jiu-jitsu strength and conditioning coach called Dustin LaBelle.
Oh,
maybe I'm saying it wrong, but he was the one who was like, "Oh no, you can play with sets of 3 and sets of 5." Like, holy shit!
Yeah,
such an idiot. I didn't recognize that.
So, like, obviously, in a traditional sense, obviously, it's quite a linear block of training. But like, your 5s and your 8s are higher volumes, and then your 3s. And I usually go 5, 8s, 3s, 5s, singles, 3s. That's usually the progression.
5, 3, 1.
5, 3, 1.
You've got full Jim Wendler.
But yeah,
strength coach numerology. You should give them like a set of 9, or the ones that really upset people. Set of 7 that really fucks people off.
It does depend sometimes. Sometimes I'll use 2s and 4s if I'm feeling
2s
like
and 4s
whatever
are quite
it is.
Fun. I don't tend to. I find, I don't know if you've had this as well, but when I push the higher volume stuff, I find adherence is difficult, people, because it is a challenging set. A heavy set of 5 followed by heavy sets of 7 or 8 is worse.
It's hard, but
and you have to pick your exercises, because realistically, I wouldn't necessarily want someone to front squat that, because their upper back's just going to fatigue before they get to a decent set of 8. So you do need to sort of pick and choose. I mean, I should probably try it on trap bar, to be honest. That would work quite nicely.
Yeah, I use it a lot with trap bar. Trap bar bench, trap bar and bench, typically pull-ups works really well for chin-ups. If obviously you've got the capacity to do a heavy chin-up. What else? RDLs, they're typically the main ones. I think it has a lot of context towards machine work as well. I think it's a really effective towards like, maybe not like leg press and stuff, but if you're, say, a grappler that's trying to, I don't know, build a bit more hypertrophy or whatever,
it's a good way.
Leaning towards more machine-based work, which obviously it's really effective for, it can be a really useful way of driving a shitload of intensity into a machine-based lift, especially if you've got niggles and stuff and you want to maintain your strength. Like you could use a leg press, for example, if you were having, I don't know, a back issue or whatever, and you didn't want to load up a squat too heavy.
Or you're a coward.
Yeah, or you're a coward. But what the point I'm trying to make is the application can be really effective. Like
Yeah.
there's a wide versatility of application.
I think
But yeah,
it's nice because what we were talking about a little bit was it's not like the sexiest thing that anyone talks about now. I remember 2 years ago, this was fucking everywhere. It was auto regulation, then it was load management, and I don't even know what the fucking hot topic phrase. It was zone 2 for a while, like,
yeah,
but
zone 2 was big.
it's fucking boring. Oh,
Yeah,
4 hours on a bike, no thanks.
yeah,
So yeah, the beauty of everyday maxes is it puts the ball in your court as the person lifting it. So it's not, I really like it because it something I find in person a lot of clients struggle with is like I'm seen as like the magic man. Like, you know the answers. What should I lift today? I'm like, I don't fucking know. How do you feel?
yeah,
How did that rep feel? Because it's about becoming more attuned to how that felt for you. And
yeah,
some people get really upset about this because they go, oh, it's wishy-washy and it's subjective. And I understand that, but that's the beauty of it, is that as you get more proficient, you will push boundaries and realize, oh, hang on, what I thought was RPE, like RPE 8 is different now to what it used to be because I've realized where
yeah,
the edge of what I'm capable of actually is. And that's essentially how coaching in anything works. You're just taking people beyond what they thought they were capable of and then allowing them to
yeah,
play with it more. And sometimes we can use rigid percentages and that works nicely. But I've got quite a few like non-grappling older clients where I'm like, I don't know what, like, you've had a big family week, you've got a lot on. Like, I've got quite a few people who are retirement age. I'm not going to strict percentage base them. I'm going to let
yeah.
them pick and choose, because then it means that when the planets align, they can chase numbers, and when
Yeah.
they don't have to feel bad for the fact that it doesn't. And
And
it's
the interesting thing is, the closer you get to maximal effort or failure or whatever terminology, the easier it is to predict the range of output. Like,
yeah,
it's a really interesting thing with recovery in terms of, I remember it was Mike Israel that I actually that reinforced this point, and he was like, the easiest way to predict recovery is through performance.
yeah,
So, but the only way to sort of assess that is to be pushing near to your end capability. Like, if you go into the gym, let's say you've sparred a hard grappling session on a Thursday night, you go into the gym on the Friday and you like bench press, right? My bench press is 5 reps, but I can only do 2. That's probably an indication that you're fucked and you're not
yeah,
recovered
yeah,
well
yeah,
enough. But if you go in and you're like, I normally do 5 and I did 7, you're
yeah,
probably good to get after it. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
the beauty of EDM work or near maximal work is that it's so easy to make that decision of where you are from a
Yeah,
relative
yeah, it
perspective. Like,
exposes that quickly.
if that weight moves, you're good. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
no matter if you feel a bit stiff and you're a bit tired, if the weight moves, you're good.
yeah.
If it doesn't move, that's a really good indicator of like, right, I either need to back the weight off a little bit here,
Or
and
back
take,
back the sets off, or
yeah, or just
like
back the sets off or
whatever. Yeah, yeah,
whatever to like where you want to manage it. But like, the beauty of EDM work for a lot of people, and there's 2 points to it which I really like, is first and foremost is it feels like fucking training. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, you go in, you load the bar, you're like you said, you're not fucking running around slapping yourself and shit, but it's like there's some fucking weight on it. I have to get myself up a little bit because I'm like, I need to move it a little bit,
yeah.
but you get some real proper. It's not like, right, I'm going to do 5 sets of 5 at RPE
Yeah,
7,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. You
and
got
you've
to
done
pay
one set,
attention.
yeah, and you've got to switch on. But the good thing about it is you only have to do it once.
Yeah,
So it's like I've been lifting for a long time, but it gets boring. Doing
yeah,
4 or 5 sets is boring as fuck. You get through 3 and you're like, Jesus Christ, what is going on here?
yeah,
So like, you can go in and just be like, right, I'm going to fucking rip a set off the floor, and then I'm going to back it off. I'm going to do some easier back off sets to build a bit of volume in.
yeah,
You're in then, and then
yeah,
you've
yeah,
got, like
yeah,
you said, you've got the factor is it's a real simple way of predicting how you're feeling for the day, because you say you've done it, like I've used it in various different ways depending on who it is, depending on where they are relative to a comp season.
yeah,
Like, if they're like not far away from competition, it's like, right, take as many sets as you need to build up into that top set. If they're a week away from a competition, it's like, right, you've got 5 sets to do it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can do
yeah. I like
5
that.
warm-up sets, and that's it. So they've got no choice then but to gauge, right, can I push it, or do I need to stay where I'm at here?
To
And
be
it just,
honest, we do fuck all build up sets. I
yeah,
I like to use it as a. I think it was Will that said it to me. Like, he said, "Don't fuck about with the jumps." Just get on with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And if it's
Yeah,
there, it's
get on
there.
with
And if
it.
it isn't, it doesn't come off. Especially with trap bar, if it's not there, it just doesn't come off the floor.
Yeah, don't
And
go for it. Yeah.
it's. I'm not saying either approach is right or wrong. I just
No.
sometimes I sit back and look at programs and go, "Fuck, we don't do a lot of building up to stuff." But I think,
Well, I do it. I do that more with remote clients because I don't know what
yeah,
they're doing in the gym. So it
yeah,
just
yeah,
gives them a little bit of like, right, just make sure you're fucking
yeah,
warming up a bit and getting yourself
yeah,
into the set.
yeah. I always say work up to it, and that
Yeah,
way
so
people can ask me what they want
yeah.
from working up. But
And
in
again,
person,
it depends on the person as well, because some people, I coach some people who will genuinely just spend 2 hours to get into it. Like they'll just keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
yeah.
Whereas like, so that for them, it's like, no, it's 5 max effort.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
5
yeah.
max warm up sets and then you're
That's
in.
it.
I don't care about you hitting a new 1 rep max. You just got 5 sets, pull the weight and fuck off.
Yeah.
So sometimes it works well for that.
I think it also, because I've moved now to anyone that I've got who has never lifted before. We will do a very basic, like 3 sets of 10, learn the different movements. People shit on 3 sets of 10. I couldn't care less. I think it works really nicely as a way to get a load of volume in, a load of practice. I actually don't think in those early stages you get very much more than just learning how to do the movements. And it's making it palatable. We might reduce it, we might up it. It depends on the individual. But I almost always have a day for them where they get to do an everyday max from day one, because I want them to get over that hurdle of lifting heavy, because people have that in their head of like, oh, it's a big thing to do. And as soon as someone learns what it's like to bear down on, especially trap bar on an everyday max, suddenly everything else becomes easier, because as a frame of reference, you're like I've had clients who go, I don't know if I can do this on front squat. And I'm like, you can fucking trap bar 180 kilos, mate. Your legs are not the problem. And that sometimes is a really nice way of getting someone to push past where they feel like they are. I think it works from technical proficiency as well, because if the rep is a little bit sloppy, which can happen, you've then got 3 sets of 3 to fix it. Yeah. So I've had clients pull it and go, fuck, that was wrong. I was too far forward, I was too far back, whatever. And then I watch their 3 sets of 3 and they're spot on, because they've learned the lesson and then they can immediately put it in, rather than you push it, you hit a true 1 rep max and it looks like shit. And then you go, oh, fuck, next week I'll figure that out, because you've just got nothing left to give. Yeah. The other thing that I think it does nicely is it teaches people that they're allowed to say, oh, I'm tired. Yeah. I'm not feeling it today. And I think that's a thing that people hide from coaches sometimes, or hide from themselves. Like, just to go on a bit of a rant about fucking Whoop bands and all of that stuff, something that I think training can teach you, if it's very thoughtfully put together, is to trust the way you feel about your body. Yeah. Now, you also have to have a healthy amount of distrust, because I've had sessions, and I'm sure you have, where you're like, I feel like shit, I'll just do my warm-up. And then you finish your warm-up and go, oh, actually, I feel pretty good now. Whereas I've had others where I'm like, yeah, I feel pretty good today, do my warm-up and go, I'm going back to bed. This is fucking nonsense. Yeah.
But then this comes back though to that original point of why performance is the best predictor of recovery and ability to play, for want of a better term. Because, like you said, how many times do you, whether it's on the mats, whether it's in the gym, how many times do you rock up thinking, fucking hell, I feel awful here, tired, I can't be arsed. And you get into it and you're like, I am fucking flying here. This is the best session I've had in years. And then other times you go in and you're like, I feel class. None of my joints hurt. Everything's moving really nicely. And then you get under the bar and you're like, nah, nothing's happening today.
But I think that's I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's really good. But I think as well, it's the ability to judge, because we want to outsource everything. As I'll fucking go on a philosophical rant here, but I think as a society we look to outsource lots and lots of things that actually matter. Like, yes, of course, a smartwatch or something like that shows you some form of recovery is a helpful tool for someone who is very, very good at grinding themselves into the ground. So really, one of the reasons they've taken off so much in America with their elite athletes is because those people can and will do more work than you could possibly fathom doing week on week. And they will play hurt, and they will play tired, and they will play all of these things because they're getting paid enormous amounts of money and they're outliers. So for those people, having a thing, because they've got so good at overriding what their brain's telling them is like, what the fuck are you doing? Some of them need a thing to tell them probably time to back off today, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And be able to go to their coach like, look, I am actually fucked today. I'm not being a wimp. Like, can
Yeah.
I just back it off and they'll go back for it tomorrow? And that's very useful in those kinds of high performance environments. I'm less convinced for everyone else because, like we've said, most people don't know what hard training is. Most people are afraid to load up a bar. And actually, learning where that push and pull can be is one of the most important lessons that you can learn as an individual, so that you're not relying on something outsourced like, oh, coach, what do I lift? Like, of course, a coach will give you parameters and concepts and have all these different ways of structuring training that mean it can consistently continue. But actually, you want that relationship between coach and client where they give you a bit of feedback, where they go, yeah, I didn't feel it today, I had to back it off. And you're like, yeah, good, I'm glad. I'd rather you didn't do, if we've programmed 3 sets of 3 and you can only do, let's say you get 1 rep out of that and you go, I backed the weight off and did 3 sets of 3. You're like, great, good. There's some fucking thought there going into the way that you train. Whereas I think that like the wearable stuff, I just find infuriating because now it's like, oh, I want my, like, I just think of it as we're in an era of where everyone wants a fucking internet daddy to tell them what to do. And now it's like, oh, yes, Dad, thanks, Whoop Band, thanks, Dad. What time should I go to sleep? When should I get up? Like, you're a fucking adult. Make some decisions for yourself.
And that is the difficulty with the stuff. Like, without sounding like one of those guys that's like, oh, I did it first. But like, so I was an early user of Whoop.
Yeah, I remember making fun of you a long time ago.
Yeah, about 18 months. And obviously, coming from the profession, I was quite good at obviously rationalising the contextual usage of the Whoop. But it made me laugh. Whereas like I've always been a bit of a night owl, me. So like I'm a bit of a late to bed, late to riser, rather than the other way around. And I used to remember it used to make me fucking laugh because I'd be stood in work at like 8 o'clock at night. My phone pings and it's like, you need to go to bed. And I'm like, right, well, what do you want me to do
Dad,
about this?
You don't know I'm a fucking legend.
Yeah. What do you want me to do about this, dickhead? Because this fella in front of me is paying me money and you're telling me to go to sleep. Like my sleep debt was like fucking, I owed it like 1,000 hours or something like that. But,
yeah, which also cracks me up because you if you go and read the literature on sleep from people who are actual sleep experts, they're like, sleep debt's not a fucking thing. It's not. You can't pay it off. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, you're either sleeping in a way that benefits you or you're not. There's no like, oh, on the weekend I'll make a deposit in the sleep bank. Like none of that fucking exists, mate. It's not.
And it is interesting how it plays in your head, like. And like the site, obviously it's quite a deep philosophical conversation, this, when you think about it, really, because management of training is as much about the complexity of managing life as it is about managing sets and reps and load and all that sort of stuff. Because a lot of like the stuff that Whoop is based on, a lot of these systems are based on in terms of heart rate variability, resting heart rate, and those sort of what you're supposed to consider objective measuring tools. Are so widely influenced by external factors and not just your training. So obviously, if you like, obviously it doesn't take a fucking genius to work out that if you go in and do 60 minutes of hard sparring, like 7 to 7+ RPE sparring, the next day you're going to be pretty fucked and not good for much. Like, it doesn't take a genius to work that out.
Exactly. Did you find it ever told you anything that you didn't know?
The only thing, do you know what? The 2 things, one of them never really impacted me, but my mates who used it said there were 2 things that was superb at. One was predicting when you were getting ill. It was incredibly good at predicting when you were getting
variability thing of that. It'll tell you something's not right. That is quite helpful.
It was very good with that. And the weirdest thing I learned was how long it took me to actually recover from being ill.
Yeah.
So like, even when you feel good, the biggest one I noticed was like post-COVID the first time. And it was like, I was fucked for... Yeah, it was genuinely about 4 weeks. But that was the one thing that was really good at. The other thing, again, which doesn't impact me too much, was boozing. So like, my mates that used it, if they went out on the piss, or even if they had a pint, do you know what I mean? The impact that had on their recovery was really, really highlighted. Like, it would just fucking absolutely tank them. Even just like one or two beers would ruin them from a data standpoint, not necessarily like from an
Yeah.
actual physical
But
standpoint.
then
But
that's the bit where I'm like, fuck off, you're not my real dad. Because
yeah,
I don't know if league is very similar, but rugby union, fuck me. You'd
oh,
play on a
drinking's massive,
Saturday,
isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
you'd get blackout drunk that night. Sunday, you'd sit in a pit of despair going, what the fuck is wrong with me? You might sit in a sauna and hope that you could sweat something out. And Monday, it's back to training. And
yeah.
so I think sometimes I I got a message from someone actually who said, was it you that told me that I can't remember who it was. Someone messaged me saying that at their gym, one of the black belts admitted that they'd not come to training because their whoop band had told them not to. And
Oh,
they
that
said
wasn't us.
the abuse they got. It's like, we still take the piss out of that person
Oh,
now,
yeah,
like 4 years later. And it's like, we're not professional athletes. And the vast majority of people who buy these things, you're not pro. You don't need
yeah.
it. It's not
No.
actually, when people are like, you need to maximize recovery. Okay, well, I'm a dad of two and I'm 37. Like, I think the fine line between okay recovery and optimal recovery is probably not fucking doing anything for me.
Yeah.
I had the same discussion with someone about electrolytes, and they were like, yeah, but it says that you can recover more. I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm not a person doing 2-a-days in America in the height of summer because I'm pushing for college football. Like, that's who it's been studied on. It doesn't necessarily mean you and me as mere mortals need to worry about these same things. Like, as you get more and close to the pinnacle of what your body is capable of, then those margins matter. But for the rest of us, they don't. Like, we've talked about it before with the fucking marginal gains around cycling, which I can't remember if this is fact or if it's alleged. So I'll say allegedly. Allegedly covered up a doping scandal. But
Well, in cycling,
yeah. It's marginal gains. They thought we had a new bike, and it actually turned out they were just really fucking good at masking their doping. But the point being with that, why are you worrying about marginal gains when you don't even get the big rocks right? Like, I worked in a school where someone came in and started talking about marginal gains because they'd fucking seen it on Twitter. And I was like, that doesn't matter when we have children whose reading age is 4 years below what it should be. Like, I couldn't give a shit if their tie's done up if they can't read a book. Let's worry about the things that matter here. And in this situation, it's like, people are at the, oh, my whoop band says I'm under recovered. Like, do you know what RPE9 feels like? Because if you don't, then let's not worry about what the fucking whoop band says. So I think that for me, training is supposed to be for the average person, and for a lot of jiu-jitsu people as well. It should be about, and this fucking word makes me feel sick in my stomach, but it should be about empowering you to make decisions, not taking your autonomy away from you because fucking, or wrist daddy says go to bed. Like, it's not, it's a lack of like personal awareness, and that's fine because we're all guilty of it. It can be a useful tool in the short term to kind of make you realize what you're not doing, but fundamentally you've got to just pay attention. How do I feel? How sore am I? How did I sleep last night? Am I being a dickhead to the people around me all the time and being snappy? Like, whether that's around recovery and training and being Mr. fucking optimal, or whether that's just not being a twat and realizing, hang on, I'm in a bad mood. I just shouted at my kids for no reason. There's these like secondary and tertiary benefits that you get as a human being from just paying attention. And I say this as a man who is very easily distracted.
Fuck me.
but I think that's why it infuriates me, because it's taking autonomy away from people and putting it in the hands of a bunch of tech bros who've, in many situations, never fucking done any hard work in their lives. So it presents this information to you as if it is fact. And actually, the data that most of it is based on is shaky at best. It's not awful.
I think it speaks to. I think in many ways it speaks to the human experience of searching for more information in a way, and I think it's very difficult for us as human beings. I know it's certainly hard for me to really disassociate with, because like the problem is, it's like everyone says like, eat a good diet, go to bed on time, whatever it is, drink enough water,
Calorie fucking
manage your
deficit.
stress, whatever it is. So like, but the problem is that's it's so hard to build an associated response with that because there's no real feedback. Do you know what I mean? Like if we were talking before about like training and the consequences that come with training. Like if you train 2 really hard sessions back to back, whether it's lifting on the mats, and nothing bad happens, what you teach yourself is that, oh, I can do that and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Now, if you do 2 hard sessions back to back and the next day you can't walk, that is obviously teaching you that that's probably too much.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in a sport like jiu-jitsu, where, like you said, it's the vast majority of people are amateur, vast majority of people aren't athletes or aren't the highest caliber of athlete, no matter what they think they are. And something
that's fine,
bad happens.
Because none of us is Brazilian or American.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. If you get injured or something bad happens or whatever it is, you keep getting ill, whatever it is, it's very easy to be like, right, I need to find a reason for this. Like, why has this happened to me? And I think it's very difficult. It's very similar to that's a shit analogy. I'm not going to use that. In fact, it's something that I think about a lot, actually, and this is a bit off tangent, but I quite often think about why is it that nutritionists in jiu-jitsu tend to be more successful than strength and conditioning coaches. And I think it's based on this fact is that it's very easy to get tangible results very quickly from nutritionists, whereas strength conditioning, it's a long term. You barely notice any changes, especially if you're not using copious amounts of drugs. Like, it's a slow, steady increase, whereas in like 6 to 12 weeks, you can significantly change how you look. And it's that idea of like Whoop and Aura, or whatever it is, and all this fucking ice baths, whatever sort of fad it is, it gives you very quick, very real, tangible information. Now, the problem is most of that information is next to fucking useless when it comes to actual impact on recovery. Yeah. But it's nice to look at your heart rate, your data at the end of the session and go, oh, I spent 60 minutes in the red zone here. That must mean something. Whereas in reality, what's the context behind it? We just fucking whatever you were doing, like running around in circles, whatever it is, like. But
you just want a gold star from wrist. Daddy. That's what it is.
You do. You
oh,
want.
Thanks, Daddy. I did well today.
Yeah, we are all beings that are based off positive and negative responses to things, aren't we? And what we're all looking for is that tap on the backs, saying like, "Oh, you've done really well today." Like, yeah.
Whoop is proud. We would like to tell you that Whoop Corporation is proud of you today.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It just smacks of like, oh, we did a pizza party for you at work. You'll get fired tomorrow, but it's a pizza.
Yeah,
but it's like I completely agree with you because fundamentally with strength and conditioning, we're playing long-term games. It's compound interest, and so that's why I think everyday maxes work really nicely because they do actually give you that feedback on a more immediate scale.
You get that sense of training, don't you? You're I'm near my top output here, and you get that like sense of like, oh, this feels fucking good. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I've accomplished something and I've done something, and I think that's what it is. Like, and again, it's like when you're doing 4 sets of 5 at RPE7, and you're trying to monitor your bar speed, even though you can't fucking monitor it because you're in the lift. Like, it's hard to like get that sense of
all the powerlifters who give up powerlifting because they realise it's fucking boring.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
go 4 sets of 5 at RPE7. Can't wait.
Yeah, and it's hard to get that satisfaction out of it. So it's like that to me. And one of the reasons I like it is because it gives you that sense of I'm actually doing something here. I feel like I'm getting some hard training. I'm loading the bar up.
But you also get to see progress in different ways. So you either get to you get like you say like, oh, I'm loading the bar up. I get to push this. So this is fucking awesome. Like, and it feels heavy. But you also then get the back off sets where you can be like so one of the things that I will use for my trap bar guys, and I stole this wholeheartedly from Jim Wendler, is you're not allowed to make any noise on your back off sets.
Well, that's an interesting concept.
So the bar cannot slam into the floor. It has to be it's silent. It touches the floor, you come back up. You can make noise, like you can fart, grunt, piss yourself, whatever.
Yeah,
But I don't want it to clang into the floor. And I often
yeah,
use
yeah,
like my kids as an excuse for why that is, because the garage is attached to my house.
yeah,
But it's actually, I want them to have control. And so
yeah,
sometimes they'll be like, oh, I only lifted whatever it is that they lifted last week. And I'm like, yeah, but look at the quality of these sets compared to last week's. And it allows two different spaces to make progress and improve.
yeah,
So I think it's quite nice for that. So the other little rules that we have, if you set a personal best, you don't do any back off sets. You're done for the day. You move on to the next
Okay,
exercise.
that's interesting.
If you come in and you feel like dog shit, even no matter what you hit, you're doing 2x2.
Yeah,
And that way we've been able to consistently stack these sessions without running anyone to the ground. To be
yeah,
honest,
yeah,
it all came from one of my clients who's a firefighter, and he is Labrador. You give him the work and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. I feel fine. Until
yeah,
6 weeks in, he's like dragging ass going, I think I feel okay. And he's fucked.
yeah,
And so it was an experiment in trying to give him a little bit more control over his own training and let him make
yeah.
decisions for himself. Because I was guilty of not giving him that space to do that. So again, it
I like
empowered
it,
him.
and again, I like it for various reasons. Obviously, you've made some really good points, but I like it for various reasons. I've used it as almost like a bit of a testing scheme. So,
Yeah.
like, especially with the triples, because you get a good relative strength perspective, and it ties really well into other blocks of voluminous training. So, like, for example, I've used it in the past where you'll do, like, say, a month of whatever it is, a month of EDM work. So it's like you'll do some triples,
Yeah.
and then the following block will be like, so say you do EDM work at triples, and then the next block would on like 4 sets of 3. I'll build it so as a way of building volume in. So you'll do, say, week 1, you'll do 4 sets of 3 at 90% of the EDM weight that you used. Or whatever it is, I can't remember the maths off the top of my head. 80% of the EDM weight.
80%.
Next week will be 85%. Third week will be 90, and then fourth week will be like 95%. So it's a bit of a sort of like ramper block, but
Yeah,
it's a really good way of building. I found it really useful for guys because obviously you're only really getting 1 week that's like a lot of volume at a really sort of near maximum weight.
Yeah.
And then if you can deload them after that, it works. Guys have really enjoyed that because, like I said, they get that bit of a ramp and they get that bit of a peak, and you can use it in various ways. Is the point I'm trying to make.
Deload them.
Yeah, just let life deload them.
That's a dig at another strength coach.
But you could use it in, like, obviously the thing I like about EDM work is it acts as a really good pivot point in terms of, like, you can use it as a singularity itself in terms of EDM work, but you can also use it as a point from extension into other things depending on what you feel
I like that,
an individual needs.
I'd not really considered that. So for me, because I'm so heavily influenced by Will and Cal Dietz and triphasic, I have a lighter heavy day and a heavy day.
Yeah.
And I tend to use everyday maxes on the heavier day on 1 or 2 of the lifts to give people that leeway. But I hadn't considered like playing with the back off in the same way that I hadn't fucking considered playing with the number of reps that you do for everyday maxes. I hadn't actually considered playing with the percentages on the back off sets. I quite like that. We'll have to.
Yeah, it works quite well, and again, it depends on what you're doing. Like sometimes you're just trying to give people something different and something interesting, and you can use that as a relative thing. The thing I like about EDM is because it's not true max; it's everyday max. Obviously, sometimes that might be near there, but like you're obviously being a bit more conservative with it, so you can build in a little bit more percentage work.
Yeah.
But you have the understanding. It's a bit like, again, to quote Jim Wendler, again, it's been a while since I've read 531, but all their work is based off 90% of the max, isn't it? It's not based off the true percentage.
So you take, if you already know your maxes, you take what it is and you take 90%. If you don't know what your maxes are, or they're old maxes, you take, I think you either take 80% or you take 90%, then 90% again. But quite often, because it has to do that, because you add at the end of every training block, you add 2.5 kilos to upper body lifts training max, and you add 5 kilos to lower body weight training lifts.
It has been a while. I was in fucking uni when I first read 531, so it's been a while.
It's all I ran for about 7 years, so I remember it quite well.
Yeah. But yeah, so it functions really well of edging slightly more on the sub-maximal side because it is a
Yeah.
bit more, only a slightly bit more conservative, but you can use it in, like I said, use it in various different ways in terms of playing around with it. You can do like, so one of the, if you're really sort of looking to run a bus stop workout, one of the ways bus stop sessions is, so what we'll do if based on what we said is, so you do an EDM for a bit and then you run 4 consecutive weeks building up to a, like I said, like about 90-95% for 4 sets. But then the fifth week you do like an AMRAP at the weight. So you'll do like a singular, right? Say you did 100 kilos, how many reps can you do with 100 kilos now? And
Nice.
again, it's just, there's nothing right or wrong about doing that. There's nothing more enhancing. It's good from a relative perspective because now we're going to go, right, we're going to do a test here. How many reps can you do with that weight? That's been really successful for us using that sort of structure. But again, you can play with it as a singularity. You can use it as a bit of a driver of, we use it in comps really well because you can do it in terms of like, say you've got a heavy day, like you said, or a higher intensity day on back-to-back comps. You can go in and say, right, you're going to go in and pull a single set. Let's say you trap bar, you're going to do one set of triples or doubles or whatever, singles if you wanted to keep the volume even lower, and that's it. So you're just getting that quick
So
stimulus.
to be fair, for
And then
my
knock
guys
it.
that do that, we just do the single. I might
Yeah,
just call it that.
yeah, whatever it is, yeah. So,
but it depends on the individual and competition and all the rest of it. But it's a really nice way of working with, especially I've found with younger grapplers as well who want to just rip some weight.
Bullsh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a nice way of not doing that. Before we finish, have you listened to the Elite FTS table talk with Rick Bugenhagen? Or
I've not, no.
Eric Bugenhagen? Fuck me. Former D1 wrestler. He was in the WWE. The man's a fucking workhorse.
I've seen clips
Have you
of it.
seen his videos? Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, just horse cocking it, as he says.
Yeah.
He cracks me up because if you listen to the table talk, one, it shows you how good Dave Tate is at slowly dragging answers out of people. Because for the first sort of 2 hours, he's like, no, I just horsecock it. There's no system. And Dave has genuinely worked out what his periodization system is from the noises he makes when he lifts. It's a fucking work of genius. It's worth listening to just for that. But then he manages to get Eric Bugenhagen, because he has been a strength and conditioning coach, and obviously he's lifted a lot, to start making his point. And I think the problem that we notice for a lot of jiu-jitsu guys is people will, and I think people in general will, if in doubt, lower the weight, do more reps. And in jiu-jitsu especially, I think it's one of the worst things that you can do because one, you're getting fuck all stimulus from it, and two, you're competing with the volume, which is like a key driver of improvement on the mats. And you're getting the worst of both worlds. It's doing very little and it's making you worse on the mats because it's taking away from your ability to recover. And I like his point of, there's a lot of people now talking about optimal training and optimizing your training. And he said a point that Jim Wendler made years ago, and I'm sure fucking Louis and all the rest of them did, but it was Jim that I read it in first. And he was like, don't look at what someone's doing now. Look at what they did to get where they are. And he made that point about Mike Israetel. He was like, love Mike. He puts out lovely, like really good stuff. It's like, I understand why he's talking about the optimal training and the proximity to failure and all of that. And we could be a bit more cynical if we wanted to, but he was like, but have you seen old videos of Mike lifting? He's like, he's just fucking horse cocking. He's horse cocking heavy weights. It's like, you have to learn how to do that because you have to lift heavy if you want to actually make progress as someone who isn't using drugs.
And this is sorry, I was just going to extend onto that. It's like, this is the hardest part of managing anything to bring a bit of jiu-jitsu and a bit of grappling into the mix is, as we all age and your training age increases, your ability to just send it all the time decreases. And even if it's not from a physical standpoint, it might just be, like you said, you've got kids now, or you've got more work responsibilities, you've got whatever it is, more financial responsibilities. So you and especially within jiu-jitsu, you pick up more knots, you pick up more niggles.
The fucking recovery toilet it puts you. I was laughing because I have recently realised I haven't maxed anything in about 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good thing because stuff I was even doing, because I'm 37 now, stuff I was even doing when I was like back in lockdown, 32, 33, with a kid, like a newborn, and luckily we've just been able to sleep and eat and look after the kid because couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
The way that I tried to test some of my maxes then, like I spent a week trying to hit the same weight on back squat. If I did that now, I probably 3 weeks before I feel normal again. And it just, sorry, you just really made me laugh.
So
at that point, but
the point I was trying to make is like there's a fine balance because you have to push. So you have to push to figure out how something moves, how something feels, to actually get better at it.
Yeah.
Like, again, to bring it back to skills training a little bit more, but obviously weightlifting is a skill, or strength training is a skill. You have to push yourself in order to challenge your movement capability under that load. Now, this is, again, to go back to the original point we talked about EDM work, is if you're constantly doing that, it will come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
If you're constantly sparring as hard as you possibly can, lifting as hard as you possibly can, it might last so long. Like, you can get, like, I think, like, back to when I first started training jiu-jitsu, I managed 5 years without taking more than 2 weeks off the mat at once.
Okay.
And that was training like 6 days a week, right? And not that I'm saying that I'm the perfect example, but now I couldn't even. That's a fucking pipe dream. That, like, there's no way I could do that now. I mean, I can barely get out of bed at the fucking best of times. Obviously, I'm a rare case, but like, there's going to come a time, this is where it's a fine balance, because without that, it would be very hard for me now to understand. Obviously, it's my job, so I think things through a little bit more than most people will.
Yeah.
But it's now allowed me the position to go, well, I know that's hard, that's going to cost me X. I know that that's a bit easier on that day, so that's going to cost me this. I know the difference between a physically difficult round and a technically difficult round, and the impact that'll have on me physically. And the same with weightlifting. I know what it feels like to max a bench, to max a deadlift, to max a squat. So I can now make, obviously, again, a bit different now because body's on its arse, but like, without that prior information, it's very hard to then work it out. So we have to find ways, and this is where EDM works so beautifully to round it all up, is that it gives you a small amount of that high intensity, high effort, but not so much that it's going to leave you in a puddle on the floor, absolutely fucked for ages. You can run it for prolonged periods of time because it's very small volume. It's very minuscule, like 1, maybe 2 sets a week, depending on how you're setting your days up and what exercise you're using. Obviously, more like a squat or a deadlift.
Every day wax everything. That'll suck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, like, but again, like, and obviously having the understanding that a squat is going to cost you more fatigue-wise than a chin-up is, because it's not just, you just can't do as much load. So, but it gives you that intensity, but it's not leaving you absolutely fucked for the rest of the week, which is really, really good. So I wanted to add on the end of that, which I think is important.
I think that's the same reason why it works for skill development and skill acquisition for people who are just starting out, because, like, you're never going to find what a fucking sticking point is if you're just weak, because everything feels like a sticking point, or the weight is light enough that you can just move it anyway and you've got no concept of it. But one of the reasons that I think my guys get quite proficient with the trap bar is not like nothing more than just repeat exposures where I go, I'm a bit of a dick. I'll be like, what went wrong there? And if they don't know, then I will help them. And sometimes I like to video the set so that they can see it and go, oh shit, I sat way too far forward or whatever. Yeah. And then you get the immediate 3 sets of 3 to try and correct that. And I think that allows you to develop without annihilating yourself. But I mean, for me, the reason it's become such a key part of what I do is because I want to put, and it's something Will wrote years ago of like, he heard other people taking less of an aggressive approach of training, where they're like a fearful. It's not a thing that's as often, I think, but people used to be very fearful of putting any weight on the bar with athletes because, what if I hurt them? And he was like, well, you fucking babysitting them. Why are you being paid to be a babysitter for a grown-up?
And it's also worth pointing out that in jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, hopefully it'll change. There is a couple of occasions, but jiu-jitsu athletes aren't $100 million athletes.
No.
So the context of that within proper sports like football, American football, these guys are worth a lot of money to these professional clubs. And if you're a strength conditioning coach and you blow somebody's knee out or back out, you owe, well, in theory, you've deprived that sporting franchise one of its peak assets. So, obviously, and again, just not to get too deep into it, we talked before about this, but like the context of what prescriptions you use from a coaching standpoint is obviously going to be dependent on the sports that you're playing. Like if you're a professional rugby player who's played a game on Saturday and you're coming in on a Tuesday to do some squat work, chances are you're still fucking knackered and banged up. Of course, sub-maximal work, like 3 sets at 5 at 75% of your max, of course that's the smart decision to make, because you've got to get into the game. They're not losing any strength. They're still going to get some strength gains at sub-maximal work. But if you're not a professional athlete,
the quality of those reps, like they're probably going to chuck them about.
Yeah, of course. And they're going to move it fast. They're going to move it in tenfold. They're going to get in, get some blood flow moving, and get home so they can recover and get back ready for the game. But like, that's where the nuances of this comes in terms of like people using it. But like for jiu-jitsu athletes, it works fantastically. Even if you're not an athlete, even if you're just somebody who likes training, it works significantly well because you're getting a bit of intensity into the week. It's nice to have. I think it's really good for buy-in because guys are going, "Oh, I've got my session tomorrow. I can't wait to see what like." Yeah, it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's proper training. Do you know what I mean? It's what training's meant to be. Like, imagine you've psyched yourself up for training, and then somebody turns around and goes, "Oh, you're going to do 4 sets of 5 at 75%." Like, it's
I'm going to
it's
show
not
you
the
a
most
really sweet cable setup for your biceps.
Yeah, it's just not that exciting, is it? Like, we all want to fucking, and obviously you've got to be smart about it, and you're not playing through pain and injury and stuff. But
again, why trap bar is such a good one because it's a low barrier for entry.
Yeah, it's easy.
It's
like
shitload of weight through someone very quickly. Like just to finish off because I'm aware that we both need to go. But my client Ed is 51 and he's been training with me for less than 2 years, and he's trap bar deadlifted 200 kilos the other week, and he went absolutely fucking ballistic for it because he was so excited, and then apologized because he knew that my wife and daughter were in the other room and they just heard him. My wife was like, I thought you'd hurt him. But he was like, I just never thought I'd be lifting weights like that. He's like, I never, he said, I never even considered that this is what I would be capable of doing, even with a coach's help. And that's the cool thing, is it shows you the stuff that actually you're capable of so much more than you think you are, just with a sensible plan and approach.
Yeah.
And fundamentally,
it's interesting, isn't it? Like, and it works across the board, isn't it? Like I've got a client, Steve, and he's what, 52? 53, something like that. Like mid-70s, probably kilos wise. Like done nothing to do with jiu-jitsu and sport. He's an old sort of Gen Pop client from the PT days. And my favourite thing about Steve is he's so nonchalant with like strength. Like he'll come in, like we've been doing a lot more trap. We obviously, because he's a general pop client, we vary it up a lot more. There's a lot less structure to there's a bit of like, this is the aim and whatever we need to do to get there will make it enjoyable for him. But like he'll come in and like he'll pull like, I think, what did he do on Monday? So he did 5 reps at like 150. So he did 150 kilos with a trap bar for 5 reps. But he just does it and he just like nonchalantly, it's just like, oh, that was all right, wasn't it?
Just casual.
Yeah, it's just a Monday night for him. Like it's funny, but anyway, we should probably leave it there because we've got places to be, haven't we?
We have.
But it's good.
Try everyday maxes. Stop listening to fucking Whoop Daddy or whatever.
Fuck that off.
Because like you said, you'd use money. I had an Oura ring. Never told me anything I didn't already know. Oh, you don't need to train. I know, I feel like dog shit. Go, you don't need to train. I'm like, I feel fine. I'm going to train. I'll eat shit tomorrow. It'll be fine.
And especially if you've got health anxiety, I'd stay clear.
Yeah, they fucking nocebo you.
Oh, mate, I've got health. We've talked at length. My fucking health anxiety is horrendous, but that did me no favours. Like, wake up in the morning seeing my heart rate variability drop 2 beats was like, it was like my fucking world was ending. It was probably the fucking heart rate variability check-in that made my heart rate variability drop.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not worth it. And
it's not necessary.
No, it's your money. Like, we're not here to judge. Spend it on however you want to spend it. But, yeah, stay away.
Just know that it's been a pleasure. I am judging you. I'm more than
not.
comfortable to say that. I'm judging you, and I think you're stupid.
I'm in no place to judge.
Neither am I, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So as always, if anyone people can find us on our Instagrams. I'm at getstrong.rollmore because I'm imaginative. Andrew is
at Brotherhood Performance.
Hey. If people have got questions, you can leave them down below if you're watching on YouTube, or I think you can still send questions on Spotify. I can't remember how it all works. But you can get either of us on our Instagrams.
We'll try and be a bit more consistent. We've been a bit shit at the start of the year.
You've been busy, and I've been
quite busy.
as well,
we should probably do a catch up episode really because I've had a lot of shit. Yeah, we'll do a catch up.
We'll do it. Cool. Right. Good to see you, buddy.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. See ya.
Take it easy. Peace.